Good morning.
Good morning.
We are here today to celebrate the 1-year anniversary of ending money bond in Illinois. My name is Reverend Violet Jonaker, and I'm the Executive Director of Rockford Urban Ministries, which is part of the Illinois Network for Pretrial Justice. We are a coalition of more than 45 organizations from community backgrounds, faith advocacy groups, and policy organizations that have been working to end money bond and reduce pretrial jailing. Our members stretch from Rockford down to East St. Louis, across central Illinois and to Cook County and its surrounding suburbs. Now, you may be wondering why a pastor from Rockford is here this morning emceeing this event, but it's to share the message that the Pretrial Fairness Act is changing lives in communities big and small. And while some may have claimed that this reform was brought about just through Chicago, thousands of people from across our state worked to get this historic reform passed, and I know because I'm one of them. In every corner of this state, people were being caged not because they were a danger to the community, but simply because they couldn't afford to purchase their freedom. Since taking effect last year, the Pretrial Fairness Act has reduced pretrial jailing, made the pretrial process fairer, and kept millions of dollars in our poorest communities. That's money that would have previously been taken through bond payments. As a mom of young kids in Rockford, I am so thankful to these advocates, to community organizers, and legislators who have made this law possible so that my kids are going to get to grow up in an Illinois without money bond, a more just Illinois, a more fair Illinois. And so today we have some fabulous speakers who are going to tell you a little bit more about the impact that this law is having 1 year in, and it is my honor to first introduce to you Cook County Board President Tony Preckwinkle.
Good morning.
Good morning.
It's a beautiful day. I want to thank you, Pastor, for that kind introduction, and to the Illinois Network for Pretrial Justice for hosting today's celebration. I'd also like to acknowledge the elected officials and community leaders who've joined us and whose work has made today possible. Illinois Representative Justin Slaughter, Illinois State Representative Lillian Jimenez, Illinois State Senator Robert Peters, Charlene Grace, Senior Policy Advisor to Cook County Public Defender Shan Mitchell, Madeline Bear, Policy and Communications Director of the Chicago Alliance Against Sexual Exploitation, Lavette Mays, Chicago Community Bond Fund, and Reverend Otis Moss, Trinity United Church of Christ. I want to thank each of them for being here and for their support. 1 year ago, Illinois made history as the first state to eliminate money bond. For too long, people were jailed simply because they couldn't afford to buy their freedom. Today marks a key milestone in our journey toward a more just and equitable legal system. But this milestone did not happen overnight. Cook County laid the groundwork for this historic change. A decade ago, our county had the largest single-site jail in the country, and it was filled with people held on low-level charges because they couldn't afford bail. Low-level drug charges, shoplifting, inability to pay your child support. These were our community members, neighbors whose freedom depended not on justice, but on the side of their bank accounts, the size of their bank accounts. Recognizing this injustice, Cook County began to act. Over the past decade, we've made historic strides to reduce our jail population. We partnered with organizations like the Chicago Community Trust and the MacArthur Foundation through its Safety and Justice Challenge. We pushed the end of money bond long before the Pretrial Fairness Act became law. I'm proud to say that our advocacy and reform efforts helped create the foundation for this statewide change. The Pretrial Fairness Act is a crucial chapter in the history of the state of Illinois. It builds on our work and affirms that justice should never be a privilege for the wealthy. And in the days since the Act's implementation, we've seen real change. Hearings are now fairer and more focused on safety, not wealth. Fewer people are jailed pre-trial, and more can keep their jobs, homes, and family connections while awaiting trial. I want to extend my deep thanks to the advocates, legislative leaders, and everyone in our criminal justice system who worked hard to ensure a smooth rollout. Your efforts are making a difference each and every day. But we know that our work isn't done. We must continue to strive for fairness and equity. We must continue to build a justice system that treats every resident with dignity, no matter their economic status or race. The Pretrial Fairness Act is one step along a long, long road. It reflects our belief in a country where justice is truly fair and every resident can live safely and with dignity. I want to thank a person who's not able to be with us this morning, and that's State's Attorney Kim Foxx, because surely her good work in the criminal justice reform arena was an important contributor to the state legislation that changed the course of criminal justice in the state of Illinois forever. And I, again, am proud that we are the first and the only state in this entire country to eliminate cash bond. Thank you.
Thank you, President Preckwinkle. And now we will hear from Charlene Grace, Senior Policy Advisor of the Law Office of the Cook County Public Defender.
Good morning. My name is Charlene Grace. It's S-H-A-R-L-Y-N, Grace, G-R-A-C-E. And I'm here on behalf of Public Defender Shan Mitchell, Jr., who unfortunately had to be out of town for a conference today. Otherwise, he'd be here celebrating with us. What I want to offer is the hearings that are happening today when people arrive in court for their first appearance after being arrested are the hearings that people imagined were happening before. In reality, under the money bond system, most decisions about whether or not someone was jailed or released to their communities while they were presumed innocent and awaiting trial happened in seconds. They happened in 30 seconds, they happened in a minute, they happened in 2 minutes. Now, when detention is on the table, we have robust, individualized hearings where the strength of the evidence is examined, the allegations are examined, the person and what they stand to lose or to gain by being detained or being released, that is discussed at a level of detail that far better equips our courts to make decisions about who's released and who's detained. And it's what we all expect based on the constitutional protections we enjoy, the presumption of innocence, and it's what we would all want if we were arrested or someone we cared about was arrested and accused of an offense. And when detention is not on the table, when someone is arrested for a lower level offense, there's no allegation of violence or harm or risk to anyone else. Those people were going home before, but they're going home faster now. And that's important because when someone spent 2 days or 3 days or 7 days in jail, that was bad for community safety. So most people, before the law went into effect, that were accused of felonies, they were ordered to pay a money bond. And most people eventually managed to pay that bond, or someone who cared about them, their grandmother, their mother, their girlfriend, managed to pay that bond. But they only were able to pay that bond after 3 days or 7 days or 2 months, or sometimes over a year, as Livette will talk about later. So when someone is in jail for anything more than a few hours or a day, they lose their jobs. If they have stable housing, they lose that. If they're a primary caretaker to a child or children, they're at risk of losing custody of their children. And those days in jail that it was taking communities to come up with that money, that made it more likely someone would be rearrested in the future. It made it more likely that someone would miss court in the future, and getting people back to their communities, back to their jobs, back to their families sooner, when that was what was going to happen anyway and should be happening. That is how we're building safety, along with keeping about $140 million that was previously paid in money bonds every year in our most marginalized communities. Thank you.
This law is only made possible by legislators who listen to their constituents and who heard the words of advocates and experts who've been working on this issue for many, many years. And so now it is my pleasure to introduce one of the champions of this law, Illinois State Representative Justin Slaughter.
All right, good morning. I'm Illinois State Representative Justin Slaughter. Just pump a little energy here. You know I've done this before. When I say we will, you respond with rise. We will. Rise. We will. Rise. We will. Rise. That's right. Grand Rising, thank you so very much for being with us today as we celebrate the one-year anniversary of becoming the first state in the nation to abolish cash bail. It was just 1 year ago today that Illinois turned the page to a new chapter, a new beginning, a new era to comprehensively transform our pretrial system and once and for all prioritize not only safety and accountability, but also fairness, justice, and equity. It was absolutely imperative that we eradicate a system that was a driving force behind mass incarceration and that caused immeasurable harm to our most vulnerable communities, marginalized communities. As we celebrate today, we want our message to be clear. Ending cash bond is working as intended, and our communities are indeed safer.
Yes.
Something to applaud, yes. After all these years of injustice and becoming comfortable with an ineffective and archaic system, it is so very critical that we give our courts time and grace to work through the implementation of these transformative measures. And as a state, we must give these reforms a fair chance to be successful. Today is certainly a celebratory press conference, but I wanted to take a little time just to inform the public about why we're actually celebrating. In just 1 year, we are excited to report that we are seeing very positive trends and results. First, and Charlene just commented on this, we are undoubtedly seeing more robust hearings, more meaningful hearings, hearings that are tied to safety instead of wealth. Our courts and judges are able to make better informed decisions about detention. Secondly, and of course, and I have a feeling my homeboy Senator Peters will talk about this, but you heard the foolish rhetoric about how there will be the purge and this will be the end of days. And listen, these are simply the facts. We have the data to prove it. Our jail populations are down. The jail populations are down 14% right here in Cook County, 14% in other urban counties, and 25% in our rural counties. Hey, people are not going to be coming up and appearing for their court appearances. False. People are returning and appearing for court. And actually, we have seen decreases statewide in our failure to appear rates. Equally important, people are not getting rearrested on charges related to violence while they're awaiting trial. Another thing I certainly want to highlight is that our crime rates are going down. Our crime rates are going down. Statewide violent and property crime rates have dropped 12% since the law took effect. And when you talk about ending cash bail, I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about the actual financial impact of this initiative. Millions of dollars are now staying and being kept in our underserved communities. On average, annually, Illinoisans were spending $140 million on money bonds. These millions of dollars will now remain with family members across the state to contribute to the overall well-being and economic security of entire communities. It's not lost on us as well that we are doing all we can to minimize the disruption of generally what pretrial was causing. The ability to remain in your home, to have custody of your children, in your job, in school, Also, we're seeing also positive impact as it relates to your health and medical situation. These are all situations that are able to be addressed in a more efficient way because of our new effort. Ladies and gentlemen, this is what safer communities look like. And make no mistake about it. Make no mistake about it. There's a lot more work to do. I want to thank all of our great many partners that have embraced this journey, embraced this movement. So very proud of their efforts. We have a lot more work to do to address racial and social and economic disparities, but we are off to a tremendous start. We're excited about these early results and excited to keep pushing forward. Thank you so very much. And with that, I'd like to bring up a tremendous colleague that's just doing an excellent job. I'm so grateful and thankful to have her with us advocating in Springfield in the legislature, and that is State Representative Lillian Jimenez.
Thank you, Representative Slaughter. Thank you to Senator Peters, and thank you to President Preckwinkle for having the foresight to really dig into this issue many years ago. And I'm just so grateful for them because they had that vision, and so now we are a year later today. And I just wanted to share a little bit from my perspective. So 10 or 8 years ago, when we were working on this issue, I was a staffer at a county office in this community, in the Latino community. And one night we got a series of calls that there was a Latina woman whose family was trying to connect with us because she was being held here on a pretrial. At that moment, I had the fortune to know about the Chicago Community Bond Fund, right? And so we connected with the Chicago Community Bond Fund, and we were able to get this young woman out, and we were able to meet her. And she came to a hearing at the Cook County Board. And so we learned about this young Latina woman, about how many public defenders and state's attorneys say was on the worst day of her life, right? She had a situation where she was accused of getting into an argument with somebody. The issue here is the police were called, this young woman was put in jail, and what was the result? Her young 5-year-old daughter had nowhere to go. Her family was not around. Her family was out of the country. She was from an immigrant family and had difficulties. And thank goodness she knew to call our office. Thank goodness we had that connection with the Chicago Community Bond Fund. Thank goodness we were able to get her out. But that wasn't the case for everybody that was being held at the time. And so our office got galvanized. We worked with President Preckwinkle to make sure that these stories and many more stories were being heard. Because again, as Charlene Grace mentioned, it was seconds that made that determination that she was going to be taken, that her daughter was going to be taken away, that she was going to be taken away from her daughter, rather. Seconds. And we believe that a more robust system that was explained and described was necessary and just, not only for her, but for everybody in Cook County and the state of Illinois. And so I'm really proud that we were part of that movement, that the Latino community was able to have justice in this moment, to make sure that we're able to stay with our families. And here before you I stand as a mother of a 5-year-old. And it still brings me to tears thinking about what would happen and how I would feel and how my child would feel and the trauma that would continue to echo if that happened. And not only that, I do remember it was Christmas too, so add another layer of terrifyingness to have that trauma put upon a child and what that happens and what that means to communities, right? After weeks and decades and so many instances and how families are torn apart. And so I wanted to thank the People's Lobby also for being part of the movement and making sure that we were being connected to community, that we were being connected to the Chicago Community Bond Fund, because that is what's important. Even to this day, as your state representative of the 4th District, I continue to hear from good people in my district and across county around the Pretrial Success Act, about what do we do next, about how do we move forward, how do we continue to improve our communities, how do we provide the mental health and case management and substance abuse support and family support to the families so that we're not seeing these results. And so I'm thankful for the organizations that continue the movement, continue beating the drum, because I get those emails, I get those calls, and it helps me be a better state legislator, and it helps many of my colleagues because we know that the support is out there. So I wanted to end with that we do hear some negativity in the news. There are some negativity around blaming a crime on our Pretrial Fairness Act. And the truth is, we all know that the issues in our communities around inequity in my district, when we see young people standing on the corner and not having any opportunities, it's easy to blame. Oh, it's this, it's that. But what's really hard is to go out there and to talk to people, to build the funding at the state level and the county level that we need to actually provide those wraparound services and wrap around those young people and make sure they have a better tomorrow. And that's what this group and this team here has been doing, not only for the last 10 years around bond reform, but around a lot of the issues. So I wanted to thank everybody and make sure that we're all continuing on that fight. Thank you. And I get to introduce Senator Peters, one of the people who's actually really been a mentor and somebody that I look up to, even though he's younger than me. But in this work, definitely, I would say, thank you, Senator Robert Peters.
Thank you, Representative. I'm State Senator Robert Peters of the 13th District, and before that, I was an organizer fighting to end cash bail. And I just want you guys to know something. It's pretty sunny out here today. I was told, a year ago we were going to have the purge. It was going to be the end of days. What's so interesting is that these merchants of misinformation, whether it's Springfield, Ohio, or it's Springfield, Illinois, they keep telling lies over and over again and keep failing to do their job. For example, we have a Will County State's Attorney who's been there for 31 years, and he spends most of his time being obsessed on a law that's working instead of focusing on his community that needs public safety. What we don't need is elected officials who take the convenient route to get elected by using fear-mongering instead of fighting for the things that are needed in a community, which is investment. What we do need is what's come out of this law, which is $140 million in people's pockets so that they could go buy groceries, that they can make sure their kids have a backpack, that they could get on the train and go from point A to point B. What we do need is investment in people, not tearing people down. And what we don't need is to fall for the games that have come from a reactionary right that continues to fail people. The fact of the matter is, a few years ago, these very terrible merchants of misinformation, these grifters, spent $50 million in a primary to get their butt kicked line. They spent $50 million in a general election to get their butt kicked line. The only purge that happened in Illinois was Republican leadership had to change hands. Yes. And so what I say is, I hope everybody understands that the people here are fighting for what it means to have safety. And it's clear. Safety is clear. Safety is pretty clear. You give someone a good house, you give someone a good job, you give someone good schools, you give someone the ability to go from point A to point B, you give people safety. That's the tough conversations we need to have. What we don't need to have is sticking to a failed system that for 30 to 40 years has fundamentally let us down. We need to move away from that. Illinois is doing that. We're the first state in the country. And I want to make sure that everybody knows, whether you're in New York, California, or Texas, you could be just like us. We're on the right path here. I'm so grateful to be in solidarity with each and every one of you. Thank you so much. Here's to a whole generation and lifetime of continuing to do this work. And let me actually end this with one more thing. There is more work that needs to be done. Rep. Slaughter has made a strong point. We need a statewide public defender system. We need to make sure that we're enhancing our court system to take on these challenges. What we can't have is people who are going to try to defund our court system by defunding the working class in this state. We need to invest in that, and one of the ways we can do that is a statewide public defender system that needs to come to fruition. Thank you. Next up, Madeline Bear, Policy and Communications Director with Chicago Alliance Against Sexual Exploitation. And let me just say, she is I'm not going to finish that. Thank you.
Good morning. Thank you. I appreciate that. Good morning, everyone. My name is Madeline Bear, and I'm the Policy and Communications Director for the Chicago Alliance Against Sexual Exploitation, or CASE. I'm incredibly honored to be here today to celebrate the one-year anniversary of the Pretrial Fairness Act and join this group. Ooh, thank you. That's right. CASE is one of the many victim advocacy organizations that were instrumental in developing and drafting the Pretrial Fairness Act. The law supports survivors by ensuring that courts use more robust hearings to determine pretrial release and detention, and ensuring that decision is made based on the facts of the case and not how much money someone has. Before the implementation, we heard a lot of misinformation, as so many of our speakers spoke about today. We heard about the purge, a lot of other racist rhetoric. We frequently heard an inaccurate prediction about how this law would harm crime victims. But this isn't new. Even when survivors and survivor advocacy organizations are supportive of change, opponents to criminal justice reform will say that these reforms are anti-victim. Survivors of violence have often been used as political pawns to maintain a legal system that does not center them, their stories, or their needs. Now, 1 year in, the Pretrial Fairness Act creates a system that places more emphasis on survivor autonomy and how they choose to engage in the pretrial system. First of all, survivors are much better served by a system that prevents people who were a danger to others from buying their freedom. The court has now slowed the decision-making process down and is really determining if an accused person is at risk of harming a survivor or not. We also have in place more opportunities for survivors to engage directly in the court process through improved victim notification, access to protective orders, and engagement with risk assessment interviews. With the support of survivor advocacy organizations throughout Illinois, the Pretrial Fairness Act set our state on a path to being leaders in criminal justice reform. We've replaced money with safety as the determining factor for pretrial jailing, and given those charged with lesser offenses a chance to heal with their community, all while prioritizing the needs of survivors. It is a true win for community safety, and we really look forward to continuing this progress in the future. Thank you. Thank you. I want to introduce Lavette Mays from the Chicago Community Bond Fund.
Thank you for introducing me. Thank you to Governor Pritzker, Cook County Board President Preckwinkle, Public Defender Shan Mitchell, Prosecutor Kim Fox, and the Illinois State Representatives and Aldermen. This is emotional for me because when I look up here and I see that this jail sits on 92 acres of land, bigger than any jail in the United States of America and throughout the world, it brings tears to my eyes because it's very painful for me to see that so many people are incarcerated and just cannot afford attorneys or get out of jail. I would like to thank the Illinois State for the first state to pass a Pretrial Fairness Act. This has truly helped the Black and brown community that suffer from incarceration. Today, I stand here on September 18th, the 1 year anniversary since the state of Illinois passed the Pretrial Fairness Act. In 2015, going through the Pretrial Fairness Act, my bond was set at $25,000 to walk. I went through pretrial 30 seconds, seen a judge, bond was set. Whew. I spent 429 days in Cook County Jail, 125 days on electronic monitoring, all because I could not afford to pay bond. Thanks to the Chicago Community Bond Fund and the coalition, my family was able to pay my bond. But because of the trauma and the suffering that my family and kids went through, we feel like no one else should have to go through what we went through. When incarcerating a woman, you have incarcerated the whole family. I'm going to say that again. When you incarcerate a woman, you incarcerate the whole family. This day will always mark a special day for me because I know that what I went through, no one else's family will have to suffer the loss of kids, housing, and your ability to work, or medical, or just simply hanging clothes in your backyard. We in the Black and brown community do not have to suffer anymore now because of the Pretrial Fairness Act. I would like to thank all of the constituents and everyone because without the groundwork, it couldn't have been done. People ask me, why do you speak out? I say, I'm afraid not to. I'm going to say it again, I'm afraid not to. When we don't make a change, we do nothing. So I would like to thank all of these representatives, all of our state senators and Cook County boards and everyone. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Do we have, yes, we do. You are in the right place today, friends, because in closing, we are going to hear from the one and only Reverend Dr. Otis Moss III, Senior Pastor at Trinity United Church of Christ.
Otis Moss III, serve at Trinity United Church of Christ, where we believe that the work of Jesus is centered on freeing people and setting the captives free. I first want to again thank our sister for sharing her testimony, and I hope that her quotes will be placed in every paper so that we recognize the work that she has done and the courage that she has had and continues to have, that she will be lifted up. Yes. Let me begin by saying this: poverty should not be a crime. Poverty or not having resources should not be a crime. And justice and fairness are good politics. Poverty should not be a crime, and justice and fairness should be good politics. The Pretrial Fairness Act does something that has been attempted in the United States over the last several years. Here in Illinois for the last 7 years, specifically moving to this point because of this great coalition of individuals who have been fighting for freedom and fairness in our community. But the United States of America inherited a particular way of doing justice that came from the British, that those who were, quote, on the lords always had fair trials, but those who came from the House of Commons were viewed in a particular way. And so the 6th Amendment and the 13th Amendment were to erase these ideas. But we still implicitly had this idea that you somehow had greater moral capacity if you had money in your pocket. The Pretrial Fairness Act wipes away that and roots itself within all of the Abrahamic faiths that says specifically that each and every human being has the imprint of God upon them and should be treated fairly before the judge. For those people of faith, we believe that there is the judge, but as we operate within a civic society, every judge should operate in a way to recognize that each and every individual has worth. And this work today, we celebrate the fact that we have moved closer to creating, in the words of W.E.B. Du Bois, the yet-to-be United States of America. And so I am grateful to be a part of this coalition. And remember, poverty is not a crime, and justice and compassion are always good politics. We are not yet done with our work, but we are inching closer where we will see the possibility of all God's children being treated fair in these yet-to-be United States of America. Thank you.
Thank you so much to all of our speakers here today. Everyone here is available to answer questions if the reporters have any questions at this time.